true?
Use the Force, Luke.
Sometimes truth isn't good enough.
I feel the need for speed.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna?
Cause it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
Dude, I love watching people scramble behind the scenes. It's kind of funny. Anyway, guys, welcome back. Wardens to Winter Wolf's Den. Winter Wolf here. King Z is going to be in a hot minute. We're changing gears this week. We're doing something a little bit less news and gossip related than ever before with this week's installment. King Z had a great idea. I backed it 142% because we're always talking about this book series. And because it is NaNoWRIMO, however you say, it's National Novel Writing Month, we're going to get into some of that too. As writers both, we wanted to just give out some tips and tricks and hopefully hear from some folks that also struggle on the behind the scenes thing of their own projects. Maybe have a little dialogue about how to get projects off the ground and keep them going. But before we get into all that, that's going to be our back half, I think, tonight. I think we're going to get into some stuff on the Dresden files because King Z, who's going to come in right around now, pitched a really cool idea because we kind of did stuff like this. Well, did we do this last month where we just did it recently with the Batman villain stuff, right?
We
also
we also did with the Nightmare on Elm Street series. How to
that's
him back.
That's the one I was thinking of. That's the big one I was thinking of. But yeah, King Z was like, hey, dude, we should talk about how we'd bring Dresden Files to life. And at first I was like, I love that book series. And they already made a TV series on the Sci-Fi Channel. If you guys ever come across that and think it's representative of the Dresden Files, it is not. It is not. It's funny in its own little charming, bad TV Sci-Fi Channel from the early 2000s kind of way, but it's not that. But King Z put in a lot of work to kind of envisioning this project. But I think what I want to do up first, King Z, if I could, is just kind of break our viewers, our listeners, the folks that'll hopefully drop by and have the chat. We give them a little bit of what the Dresden Files is about. And I know you're a big audiobook guy, and that adds a whole different level of Dresden Files because James Marsders is a master of encapsulating multiple voices in this series, from Dresden to Murphy to Nicodemus to Molly to the to the Oracle, to the Oracle, to all of them, right? It's to Ivy. She's good. I mean, he's good, and it adds another level of flavor. But dude, when did you first get into the Dresden Files? And maybe just hit me with your favorite thing about the series.
Well, I think it started about 5 years of you you need to read this series. You need to read this series. You need to read this series. And at the time, I was having a job where I was driving a lot, and I was going through audiobooks. So I went ahead and
that was when you did it.
Yes, I went ahead and grabbed the first one, and I listened to the first one, and then I took a hiatus from the series because Audible, you need credits, and credits don't grow on trees. So
they surely don't.
So I took a hiatus as I was finishing up another series already. In my audio library, I think I have 235 audiobooks.
Yeah, dude, you're stacked on the audiobook front for sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of audiobooks, and a lot of it because I was driving. So when you're driving for 8 hours a day, you can really knock out some books.
Because you do that really stupid thing where you listen to them on 1.5 speed, which was enough to give me epilepsy when I tried that. Just so you know.
Actually,
almost killed me.
Back then when I started, I listened to on 1. I started into 1.5, right? I processed it a little bit better. Mostly on books I've already listened to. I put it on that speed because I already know what's going to happen. I'm just trying to refresh my memory or something like that.
True. It's like research at that point. True. Yeah. So what's just in terms of Dresden overall, what's your favorite part of the series as far as you've read? Because I don't even know that you've read the whole thing because they're on book 16 now. They're up there now. It's crazy. I don't know if you've made it through to the end yet.
No, I have not made it to the end yet. And one of the things I liked is that magic doesn't fix everything. It actually usually causes more problems.
Yep.
I liked how it has a toll on people. Magic shouldn't be just something willy-nilly that you use, and it shouldn't be the end-all be-all fixing everything. I do like some of the interactions with a lot of the characters, like Toot Toot. It was that first interaction when they were talking about pizza. And I should have put that as my quote. You haven't heard of Pizza Day, Harry?
For the Pizza Lord. Yeah, for the Zalord. Yeah, the Dresden Files has like 40 good characters like too. That's one of my favorite parts about the series too, is that the side characters are all living breathing beings within the Dresden verse. You know, they have goals and motivations, shortcomings. They don't all like each other all the time. There are various forces that are at odds with each other, and it's complex. But one of the things I like most about the Dresden Files, I just want to bang a few of these out before we jump into your template for how we would do this live action, because I think this is important. This is like foundational stuff. One of my favorite things about the Dresden Files is, as we were just talking kind of pre-show, the world starts very small in Stormfront. That's book one. That's what Kingsley's project is tonight, guys. It would be if we took the book Stormfront, great double meaning behind the title when you get into it and you realize, oh, there's actually a storm building in the book, but it's also about the larger setup and payoff. I love it. It starts small, almost to its detriment, because you'll find, and I've heard this from a bunch of people, I don't remember if you said this before, but the first two books are almost unequivocally across the board rated as the lowest two in the series, because they are kind of slow and they are kind of limited in scope. And then when you hit grave peril in book 3 and you start meeting characters like Michael Carpenter and his daughter and the mom, Charity, the world just goes. You meet the Lianshi, his godmother. And you're like, who the hell are all these people and where they come from? So it really opens up. But I love that the world starts small and then it grows into S-tier world building, and you get vampires here, fairy courts over here, white council, black council, gods that you never imagined would play roles in like mortal worlds. But it's something from everywhere on Earth in Chicago, which makes sense because, as you know, as a world traveler, Chicago O'Hare Airport, Dresden references this, crossroads of the world, dude. You know, so I love the world building. Anything you want to say about world building in Dresden, Chicago?
Listen, I'd have to disagree with it being one of the lower ones with Stormfront. I think Stormfront is a good story for a opening to a series, because one, you're getting introduced with a character at a point where it's like you should know who this guy is. And I like that. Like he does a brief introduction of who he is at the beginning, but like you're thrown right into his life. You're not watching him grow up from a kid, him going through school. Nope, you're thrown right into his life at this is starting of a turning point of his like next 10 years of his life. It started with the first book. So that was one of the things I did like about it. Like it throws you right into the story. Now, of course,
I mean, he's taking his first case by like page 10. Just to be clear with everybody that might not have read the books, like you get about 8 pages of intro that sets up him, and then boom, he's accepting a case. But then he gets hung up on along the way with a major series antagonist, John Marcone, going into like all 16 books.
But see, that's another thing. He's not a rookie working with the police department either. He's worked with them before. Like he has a built-in relationship with him. So you're not getting a rookie story either. You're getting a grown story. Yes, and that was one of the things I liked. It's like you get so tired of like them redoing the origin story. Like I don't need to see how Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man. I think that's what they did great with Homecoming. They didn't tell us how Spider-Man became Spider-Man all over again.
Yep.
And
we don't need to see the Waynes die again in an alley. Well, I'm good.
No,
I know we all know the story. How many times do you see Superman come in the ship?
Yeah,
0 for sure.
You don't need that origin story with a well-defined character. And like, but this one, he like just totally just throws you into the world. Like he's not a well-defined character. You don't know who he is, but he just kind of just throws you in, and then you're along for the ride. And I like that because it has that type of noir feeling to it, which is one of the things in my notes I want to hit on about how the show should be done. It's a very noir.
Yes.
Like if you ever watch like the old black and white mobster cop movies where you have the voiceover of the private detective, where it's like, my day was great until she walked into my office.
Walked in. Dude, the whole book Stormfront is called Stormfront because it's raining 90% of the time. And we get scenes of him outside. Huh?
That's Chicago.
No, never. Right. He's outside in the rain in several places having those kind of soliloquies, like lamenting the decisions that he's made. How did I get dragged into this? Oh, the toad demon's about to kill, because there's toad demons in this. The toad demon's about to kill me, and I'm outside bare ass except for my cowboy boots because the demon caught me in the as I was getting out the you know what I mean? It's crazy, but it has those noir elements with the femme fatales and the good guy getting roped in and refusing to compromise or never not do the right thing. Because you're right, you don't really know who Dresden is, but you know within the first like 5 pages that you like him. Because if you remember the opening scene of Stormfront, it's the mailman's dropping off. It's mundane as hell, but it's hilarious. The mailman's dropping off his stuff for the day, and he sees the sign on the door that says Harry Dresden, Wizard PI.
Wizard for hire.
Like, Wizard for hire. He's like, are you for real? And he's like, fucking just give me my fucking mail. Come on, get out of here. And
he's like, what, like kids' parties?
That tracks. Yeah, dude, it's great. I love that. But you're right. We get navigated through his world that includes all of these real supportive characters. I hate calling them secondary or side characters because none of them are, dude. Is Karen Murphy a side character? No shot. You know.
No.
But he has all these awesome connections to people like her and Marcone. They bring Toot Toot and Bob the Skull in out of nowhere, and then you're like, okay, this isn't a detective story. Like now it's sinking. The magic is sinking in. You know, so dude. So who are some of your favorite supportive characters that you're looking forward to working in? Like as you write the show, who do you like?
Well, for the first season, Stormfront, like you said, it's very, very limited. But I think Gentleman Martone is a very distinct character, and he could have you'd have a lot of fun of playing with him. Of course, Toot Toot, because Toot Toot, I mean, he has a very small scene, but once again, very fun. And it also links one of the overlining themes throughout the book is the thin line between the mortal realm and the supernatural realm.
Yep.
So this is where when Toot Toot's scene is, you see that very first like crossing of the boundary of the veil. It's lifted a little bit. So Toot Toot would be a fun one. Just the whole interaction about pizza, it's so great.
Oh, it's too funny.
Yeah.
It's too much. Dude, I love Marcone. I love the fact that Dresden's afraid of him in book 1. When he gets in the car, he's like, oh shit, I can't open the door from the inside. He's afraid of Marcone's bodyguard. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The big guy. Red hair, built like a linebacker, but a Division II linebacker, I think he calls him. I like that he's not overpowered at this point in the series. Like there is no power creep yet. It's book 1. So he's not just like, I'm King Dick. I can sling around the fuego whenever I want and handle business. By like book 3, 4, 5, he's starting to take like verbal jabs at everybody tougher than him on the food chain because he starts not to care a little bit because he comes into that power. He develops over time. Dude, I love Murphy as his so Dresden's gig, guys, and this is one of the things that grounds him into something that you love as a character. Like he's broke. Like he's perpetually broke. The PI business isn't good for him. The book opens on, I'm $500 behind on this month's rent. That doesn't count last month's. You know what I mean? Like he's got problems that are legit. And like King Z was saying, but he knows because he's been taught properly, magic typically is not the answer to your problems. It typically makes things worse. So he's hard up for case money. So his second gig, his side hustle, is he calls himself like the world's first openly practicing wizard for hire, and he's contracted as a consultant with the Chicago police. So he's got an inroad with Karen Murphy. I don't think that they mention in a side story in one of the other like short story books, I think it's Side Jobs, about how they met. I think Karen was working on a missing children's case. An ogre had taken a kid, and Dresden randomly happens upon it, something like that. But like Kingsley was saying, you're just inserted into this world. You know that until 8 books later and like the side stories compendium kind of thing. So there's world building everywhere. But Murphy's like the typical female character that modern stuff can't give us. She's 5'0", but they go out of the way to tell you and show you via the trophy case with all her Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu awards. We know she's a fairly accomplished shootist, with the sidearms. Because they tell us. So she comes from a family of cops and soldiers. So she was always pushed to be competitive, and she had to beat her brothers. And she was, daddy's little girl, but, the dad didn't want her to be a cop because he didn't want to get her hurt. And she felt like she had to overcompensate. So there's logic. So when 5 foot tall Karen Murphy applies a wrist lock to you, you go down. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. But she didn't throw you through a wall. You know what I mean? And she knows that. So she's smarter than Rey, Palpatine, and crap characters like that. But Dude, what else do you want to say about the Dresden Files before we jump in on your project? Because I think I hit all my things: villains, characters, setups, and payoffs. I'll save one for the end, because there's a big bookend in book one that I do like, with some of the opening dialogue and the very last paragraph. There's a great closeout. I'll save that.
No, I'm good to go. If you're ready to dive into my notes.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. We've been blabbering about how much I love this for like 15 minutes. Dude, let's get it on.
All right, so the quick log line about the series is that it's set in modern day Chicago. Wizard for hire Harry Dresden navigates a world of supernatural mysteries, blending noir detective work with high stake magical battles. So if you don't know what a log line is, it's pretty much everything the show's going to be in 2 sentences. It's pretty much what the first thing they read, and then that's when they decide if they're going to go any further, is based on your log line.
Right. So it's got to be good. It's the quickest pitch you can make.
So one of the things we would go with is a mix of gritty urban noir / dark fantasy with a cinematic aesthetic. The series embraces the atmosphere style of the Mandalorian world building combined with a narrative complex of true detectives. Complexity.
I like that because I think that I like that because I think that respects some of the intricacies that go into the book, because he's actually, for the better part of the first 2, 3, 4 books, Dresden actually is investigating a crime for Murphy, or he's got a PI case for a friend, and there is levels of detective work that we see him do. It's kind of like very early Batman, actually, where he's applying detective and PI techniques like on the ground with the nice little magical flair. Like he's got the tracking spell, which is kind of interesting. He's got a couple of other gimmicks and doodads, you know.
Yeah, if you think about a PI, like they have like trackers and GPS trackers they put on cars, they tail people, they have informants, and Dresden, even though they're magical or mystical beings, they're still the same type of things a PI would use.
100%. That's exactly, and we mentioned the character Toot Toot early on. That's basically, it's Harry's eyes and ears on the ground, because he goes out of his way to explain that the type of fairy being that Toot is, there's millions of them in Chicago, but you never see them because they're small and fast and they know how to stay out of sight. But they basically can network and canvas the entire city and usually get back to them in an hour if they remember, because they also typically have really short attention spans, which is hilarious. You know what I mean? Everything has balance in the story. Everything.
So the show would run for either a 10 to 12 episode per season, running about 50 to 60 minutes per episode, a balance of plot development and pace. We would also have no filler episodes. Everything would be plot driven, directed towards what happened in the book. It would be one season is one book. So the first book would be Stormfront. It would take up the entire first season.
I think you could do that too, because it only runs about 315 pages, if I remember right. So I think that's enough to carry 10 episodes. The Wolf doesn't get his wish. I can't get 25 episodes out of 300 pages without having the filler episodes that I know you love. Those are some of your favorite episodes.
They're the best.
They're the best as ever.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not.
So with the adaptation approach, we would focus mostly on highlighting key scenes that showed Dresden's internal conflict, moral challenges, and dark themes, staying true to the plot as well. Yeah, I mean, with any adaptation, you're not going to get 100. You're not going to see the books just show up on the page. There's going to be some stuff cut and maybe little things added to enhance the story visually that you can't that doesn't translate well from a book.
I want the Toad Demon, though. You can't not have the Toad Demon, dude. I can't. It's not negotiable. It's not negotiable. Let me put a pin in you right there real quick, though, because I wanted to just tell everybody what kind of the overarching plot, unless you had a bit of a breakdown of that coming, of like what Stormfront is actually about, the murder investigation, because it is a homicide investigation up front, multiple homicide, as a matter of fact.
Yes, actually, I do have a breakdown. I actually have an episode breakdown.
Okay, yay. Okay, cool. So, then we'll go. I just wanted to, so it's a homicide story, and King Z will give you the details of how he would handle Dresden investigating what he thinks may be a building magically empowered serial killer that has personal ramifications for him, because he's aware that the governing body of wizards is going to think he did it, because he's the only public wizard in Chicago with that kind of juice, as he calls it.
Yeah, my season 1 synopsis is in Stormfront, Harry Dresden investigates a gruesome double murder in Chicago where he suspects has supernatural connections. As Dresden develops deeper, he unearths a conspiracy that could lead to an all-out war between humans and magical beings, forcing him to confront his own inner demons.
Also with vampires and toad demons and
Yeah, that's a supernatural part of it.
all kinds. I was just getting specific.
So
it's awesome that all of these things fit in there.
So if you guys followed along on some of our other reviews, namely the Andor one, I really enjoyed that they had the 3-episode build part. So I kind of went with the same format here, where the first 3 episodes introduce Dresden's world, his relationship with the police, and then introduces the murder. Next 3 episode, he uncovers a larger supernatural force involved, and here he starts investigating, which puts him into the vampire and the mob side of it. Then the next 3 episodes, the case takes a toll on Harry. You start seeing the toll it's taking on him, his relationship with other characters, which will introduce Susan and some of the other people around him. And then you have the finale, which would be probably a 1 to 2 episode, a setup, and then the climax episode, leaving us with a cliffhanger at the end, which would close the book, but also set up the next season.
Which works because I'll blow my payoff shot here. The way Stormfront ends after the case is resolved is Harry's kind of stepped into his own as kind of like not only just a PI, but as like a wizard out there on his own. Like he's embraced the power. He basically, like standing in a lightning storm, accepts that he has enough juice to beat this other punk level fake wannabe sorcerer, as he calls him, who happened across an old, grimoire book at a used bookstore and taught himself one nasty curse. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to smoke you now. So Harry gets to that point because then he has the showdown. Does he have the showdown with Marcone at the end of Stormfront? Or am I thinking? Yeah, I think it's the end of Stormfront. He blows the doors off of the guy's club, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we're shutting you down."
That's not at the end.
Is that Full Moon?
No, that's not at the end though. That would be that's where he finds out that his stud is working for this.
Oh, right. But it's in this book, right? Of course, the end is he battles the Shadow Man.
Yeah,
like, he actually has it out for him. And then the very end is he deals with the 2 people that were in on helping him run the drug, the 3-eye drug at the lake house.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost burns, but then Morgan begrudgingly saves him, which Morgan was that's a great side character we didn't mention up front. But I think one of the great things about this show, as King Z would write it, like he said, we're going to introduce other people around Harry. One of the best parts of the book up front is Harry doesn't start with he's not Harry Potter. Like he doesn't instantly have friends. He doesn't instantly have this giant bank account that his parents left him. He's actively existing under the threat of death, because that one of the interesting parts of the backstory, if you remember the name, is the Sword of Damocles, where it's basically like in Harry's past, he committed a murder in self-defense. The White Council of Wizards put him on trial for that and almost executed him. But he gets away with the stay of execution because, as other books reveal, somebody stuck up for him and they got him basically put on a probation for wizards. Right. Yeah. So when the murders happen, King Z would have to wrap that through introducing a character named Morgan, who's basically his PO. He says, if you screw up, I get to decapitate you. Like, it's just over. You're just done.
Yeah, he comes in and he actually thinks that he did it. Like he automatically has like you're guilty type mindset into this because you've done it before.
That's preset. Mm-hmm. And it gets easier. Yeah, exactly. But I love the fact that the case that he gets asked to investigate the case by Murphy, by the Chicago PD's Lieutenant Murphy, right? His future love interest. And when he starts not giving her straight answers, she thinks he's guilty and she arrests him.
Mm-hmm.
Like she basically cuffs him. So he's got the law breathing down, the real law breathing down his neck. He's got Morgan breathing down his neck, and he's got nothing and nowhere to go. Like he's broke. He can't just drive out of town. Like his car is the Blue Beetle is a side character in this show. It was one of the glaring things missing from the Sci-Fi Channel show, dude. No Blue Beetle. That's some bullshit. It's got a character, man. It's good. It's mine. I love that. I love that line. I love how he loves his stuff. But I think the noir element, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like dark alleys, the street lights with like the rain and the haze coming through them. Like I can see this world being built, and almost like we were talking about on the Penguin, how Gotham is a city. Like Chicago could very much be a city here, like an authentic character city in this show, for sure.
I mean, Chicago is an iconic city in the United States. It pains me to say that because I hate all Chicago sports, but the city itself is very iconic with its past, its history, its mob background with like Capone and all of them. So, yeah, this is a perfect setting for this type of story as well.
Yeah, it totally works, and I love that in a bunch of the different books, as the story expands out, the author references certain landmarks and actually utilizes certain locations to kind of navigate you to where Dresden's traveling. I'm going over to I'm going down by Wrigley when it was Wrigley. I'm going down by Wrigley. I'm going over to what's the rich neighborhood it's the Gold something. He's always talking about that's the nice side of town is the Gold. I can't remember what it's called, but he's referencing different points like Cobb County Hospital, where he goes with Michael to save the babies from the ghost. Like that's a real place. There's a lot of stuff in there like that, but that's later. That's other seasons. But when we're talking Dresden Files, though, you were talking about utilizing the aesthetic and getting some visuals. Harry's been known to sling around the magic. It doesn't come out a lot in Stormfront, but if you wanted to use some of the stuff like the pyro spell and the Forzare and some of the other good stuff, and even something like Bob the Skull, let's talk about Bob the Skull. Let's describe Bob, and we can talk about special effects because Bob's a main character. Again, he's not just a bit character. He's legit. One of many.
So it's a skull that has many markings on it, which pretty much is a prison for a spirit that has like vast knowledge of spells and potions and stuff like that. And it's I don't remember how Dresden became in possession of this, but
took it from the guy he killed.
Okay.
Took it from Justin, his godfather, uncle, or adoptive father, or whatever.
Yeah. And yeah, so he has it as a tool, and the spirit can't leave the skull without permission from the owner of the skull. So yeah, but he's a sex driven spirit that has a really good comic relief, and I like.
Yes.
So I think the first 3 books, they use them the exact same way. And it wasn't until like the 4th book where it started expanding what he could do. Because it's trying to be like, all right, this is the spot where we do Bob and we're going to make a potion. That's what like the first couple books were.
Excuse me.
Where
Butcher actually has an interview where he says why he purposefully moved away from that, because he felt like it was becoming a TV show almost. And there was we hit the 22-minute mark. It needs to be Bob's scene where he tells me how to build the doodad for that episode to solve the problem. Yeah. And that's why Bob's role evolved a little bit.
Yeah, it had to, because it was becoming very redundant and very
But I liked it, man. I like Harry hearing, he's talking about the different ingredients and what they represent and what quantity and why. And he's not just picking Eye of Newton, douche this or whatever. He's like a ripped up $20 bill for my desperation. Like it's funny. Like it just worked, dude. The guy's on fire with that stuff.
It was funny, but it became predictable, like you said, like a TV show. It's that 22-minute mark. You had to.
The books came out every other year. The books come out every 3 years. It's not like you're watching it like weekly. How do you? It's not predictable.
I know, but it did. Really, it did.
It must have, because he stopped doing it, dude. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, there's a reason why it had to evolve, because then it just becomes predictable. It becomes stale. It doesn't have the same impact as it would if it was like 1-2 books. And the other part about Bob is he gave him insight into a little bit more. Like he would drop like little nuggets of knowledge on that to start thinking about stuff. Even when he's tired, it got the brain working a little bit. So Bob's role is important to Dresden, just as Bob is important as Bob himself. The skull is important to Dresden.
Well, they become something of friends down the stretch too, and there's various points where Bob either gets stolen or becomes endangered by things like daylight can kill him, because he's technically a spirit of the air from the Never Never. That's like the adjacent magical world that wraps around Chicago and like the human plane, right? So there's definitely some consideration there where Harry's careful not to push him past his limits. And I love that. It's just one more relationship that goes through an evolution through the show. But I love Bob's overall character as well, because again, superior offerings, like Kingsley's always talking about, like every character needs a want. You know what I mean? And at Bob's superficial level, he wants porn, which is funny. It's just hilarious to me that like a disembodied brandish skull with like sigils and shit just wants romance novels because he's an aficionado on he mentions that he's like, I gave that book like 4 jugs up or something. Like, it's funny. He's just crude. But Bob has a backstory too. He was possessed by Harry's adoptive father, who was like big time black wizard, necromancer, awful, right? But he also has ties to the queens of fairy, especially in winter, where he's afraid of Mab. And they never kind of nail down in the future books why that is. But for a prop that sits on a shelf in every book, all this kind of thought went into developing him as not just something Harry goes to as a research assistant to get an answer, and then we move on and solve the problem. You're exactly right on that. They did change that up and made it more in depth, and that was a great move.
Yeah. So how we would do it in the show is like pretty much special effects and visual effects would be a major point of contention with the budget. Yeah. So how you would do it is you would have a practical prop of the skull. Then you would do a 3D scan of it. So you could do like light the eyes up, make it flow, highlights. Has some fun with it, which would be probably one of the easier things to do, especially if you do you did the 3D scan of it and just introduce it, and it'd be easy to move around. You could actually do it with a person in a green suit as well, put some lights that he could turn on, and then you can just crop him out of the scene and have it go. So there's a couple different ways you could do it. AI and software like After Effects and stuff like that makes it a little bit easier to do stuff like that, because you can do the whole masking around it and then just hit remove from scene, and then it will repair the background behind you. How you had to do it before is you would shoot a clean slate. So you'd have the camera at the exact same spot and just shoot so you have the background. And then you would layer it in the editing software that you're using for your special effects. You would mask out the person, and then because you had the clean slate of the exact same thing, you wouldn't see where they were at all. And that's how you got the floating effects back in the day. You just had to be really good at masking, and you had to have the exact amount of footage of a clean slate as the actual scene you recorded.
You see, you just put much more thought into it than the actual series did, because they just cast a dude and like just had to be a guy. Like, they didn't do the skull thing at all. They're like, no, I live in that skull over there, but because we wanted an actor, here I am. And I'm like, that's not Bob.
But yeah, and that's the easier if you have no budget to do it. It's just cast the dude.
Dude, I could have saved you that guy's salary. I just put the skull on the shelf and had it not move and no highlights, and then just had you voice the skull. Like, it wasn't even the smart financial move, dude. It was just dumb. Dude, I remember the first scene Bob rolled in because the show, Harry like walks into his lab, and it wasn't even really a lab on the show. It's just like the next room over. Right? In the book series, it's pretty cool. Even Harry's apartment is cool. Damn it. Like, it's just cool. He's got like a boarding house apartment on the basement floor that has a sub basement. That's his lab. It's the opposite of the wizard's tower. It's hilarious. But Harry in the show, Harry just walks into a room. He's like, Bob, I need you. We got to do whatever. And like literally some British dude just walks around the corner. I'm like, who the fuck is that? And then he answers to Bob. I'm like, motherfucker, that ain't Bob. He's got no staff. He's got a fucking hockey stick. Jeez, that show's awful. That's not the Dresden Files. But anyway, where are we going next, man? I derailed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jim Butcher talked about that. He was talking about like this was a different universe of Dresden.
Yeah.
So it's not actually linked to the books and stuff like that.
Which makes sense considering Karen Murphy's, has a daughter, wrong kind of person, and everybody's wrong in the show. Makes sense.
So one of the things that I'm also big on is I like a certain type of drop of show. One annoys me, and the other one I enjoy because I can binge watch stuff. But with this type of show, I am going with the weekly release, so it can So to build word of mouth, and like you can spread, and you have some fun stuff on social media with behind the scenes with official podcasts, kind of like what Penguin does. at the end of their show, they have that behind the scenes talk. And then they also
Yep.
have an official podcast, which is about an hour long, where they talk about the episode before. With that type of media buzz and social media buzz, you could draw a whole new level of fans to the series as well as the books. I mean, you're going to have a built-in audience to begin with, because you're going to have the people who want to see Dresden brought to life properly in a show.
Yeah.
And then also with urban fantasy / dark fantasy, you're also going to pull in a lot of the younger viewership, that 18 to 25 demographic, because those are shows that resonate more with your young adult audience. So this show could be a real hit if done properly.
But it could be an absolute banger, because I think that this show, you should be aiming your demographic higher, like you said. This isn't for the Stranger Things season 1 crowd. Oh no, I guess it's probably for that. But you can do more graphic adult stuff with the Dresden Files, because everybody is an adult on the show. You can get at the murder scenes on a level, like you said, like True Detective, because people are getting like, hearts blown out and stuff like that. Harry is very much an old school male type of semi-chauvinist character. You know what I mean? Like if he sees a good-looking woman, he makes the remark in his inner monologue, which all people do. Like he's not outwardly perving on anybody, but he's making those kind of jokes. Bob is obviously making those jokes. Harry has those kind of interactions with Susan and with Karen Murphy later, where like there is a romantic dating level. Can we date? Can we not date? Our worlds don't. All that stuff you can pile in, because it is themed at an older audience. Like it's not Twilight. There are complicated things that come up and complicated decisions people make. It isn't just feelings at the kitchen table, feelings in hallways. So I mean, you could absolutely get away with stuff like that.
All right.
What's next?
Well, next I think we start getting into casting. This is the fun part.
Yeah.
Where we talk about who we should cast as the characters in season 1. Now, these are...
And this is tough.
This is tough, because it's hard to find that ideal casting. But when you're playing make-believe like we are right now, we could have anybody we want.
Yep.
And so we should start
living
with
or
our
dead
character. We should start with our
living or dead.
Yeah, no. I went with living.
When we get there, I'm saying it. I don't care if we took his picture out, because it was a good pick.
All right. So let's start with the lead. Harry, was it Blackstone, Copperfield, Dresden. Yeah.
Conjure by it at your own risk. Oh, yeah. Love it. I can't wait to say that part at the end.
Now, the person I have cast for this, I grew up, I went through a couple of different fan sites where they had like perfect castings and stuff like that. And of course, I used one of my good friends, Chad. So I'm going to go with Michael Huntsman as my Dresden. He, with that beard, the look in his eyes, I can see him play Dresden. Yes, he's older than what he's supposed to be in book 1, because he's in his 40s. The actor is, but Dresden's in his early 20s. Mm-hmm. But I think he can pull off a younger version, especially with the facial hair and stuff like that. So that is who I would go with as my Dresden. Thoughts?
Dude, solid. I think, like you said, it's tough to get a perfect hit when it comes to age and physical appearance. The problem any pick is likely going to have with Harry in particular is Harry describes himself as not being Hollywood attractive in like every book. Like every book that sets up the page for how he looks in the mirror mentions he's got the crooked tooth, he's had the broken nose, but he never puts himself out there as being ugly. But he's not conventional Hollywood leading man. This is a good looking dude. You know what I mean? So it would be and also Harry Dresden's like globetrotter tall. Like he's like 6'8" or 6'10" or whatever he is. Like he's like not conventionally somebody that blends in well for height wise. But this guy would work. He's got the dark features. He can rock the beard or the stubble. You can mouse his hair up a little bit. I bet this dude could give you some sick Harry Dresden, David Tennant as the doctor intensity when you need it. Because when Harry goes off the deep end and cuts loose, like he cuts loose. Like there's some FAFO 101 that goes on in a bunch of places in his books, and then it gets real scary real quick. So this, I think this is a decent pick. The one we trashed and threw out though was the Prince Caspian actor. That was Ben Barnes, right?
Ben Barnes. He would have been number 2
as a young Dresden. Young Dresden, it could have worked. Yeah, young Dresden could have worked, but again, a little too pretty and probably nowhere near close enough to sell me on the height. But the height, I'm guessing, is the one thing you'd have to just probably scrap for the format. Like you're probably not getting a dude that's like 6'8" to fill the role. I mean, maybe you could. I mean, sure, there's some actor out there that's 6'8", but I guess that's the least important thing of his appearance. He just has to be somebody that's kind of gangly, probably some good physical comedy chops, because Dresden falls down a lot and gets tangled up and stuff, and like funny stuff happens to him. So you need somebody that could pull that. You need to be able to sell it. You know, that's a good one. I could take Dario, Game of Thrones, because that's where dude's from most famously, I think.
Yeah, and
who's next on the casting call?
For Nets is the Karen Murphy, our number 2 on the call sheet. Now, as my wife pointed out, all the females on my list are too tall to play Karen Murphy. But I think this girl has the look for Karen Murphy based on how she kind of described.
Well, hold up. You broke up. You were saying.
Oh, you froze too there for a second too. All right. So I was saying, my wife said that none of these actresses.
The last thing I heard was your wife said.
Okay. None of these actresses are short enough to be Karen Murphy. They're a little too tall.
Yes.
Based on her description. But once again,
I put nothing.
Yeah. One of the things we might have to throw out, same with Dresden. And this is Evan Rachel Wood. She, I think she captures what Murphy would look like. Put a ball cap on her, put a ponytail out the back of it, and I think you have a perfect Karen
shoulder
Murphy
harness.
Right here. Yep.
I took this picture in specific because of the haircut in the picture where Murphy's out. I think it's in book 1 where it actually says she literally has this hairstyle where it's like short in the back, long bang on the front. You know, just long enough to be professional as like a female cop, but like not so long like it's going to get her grabbed and killed in a fight kind of thing. There's a passage about it. But yeah, I think this is probably my favorite of the picks that we have, because I'm like, outside of the height thing, you know, they describe Murphy in the book as she could be like somebody's older, like she comes across as somebody's older sister with like the body of a gymnast who's not messing around. You know what I mean? Like you could throw her in a sundress at a family picnic, which comes up later in a different book, and she could pass right off on that as she would in the jujitsu gi, like on the mat training. So I thought this look right here, I think nailed that perfectly.
Yeah. So this is our Karen Murphy, as we refer to. She is the head of the Special Investigation Division.
Investigations. Yep.
So our Nets casting, and we talked about him with the VFX special effects, and that's Bob. And now I think Bob has, based on, because I listened to the audiobooks and not actually read the books, this one drove my choice a little bit closer to who we picked, and that's why I chose David Tennant to voice Bob. So you won't actually see him, but he would be the voice that would bring in Bob, and I think with his British accent would capture this perfectly.
I think it's important to hit the accent, because not a lot of characters especially on the audiobook front, like you were talking about, not a lot of the characters have various accents. The voice actor doesn't go out of his way to throw down like a Chicago accent or anything like that as he's voicing the characters from the area. So adding that British sound, super effective in getting the role. But the important thing about getting David Tennant that I just hit on a minute ago about intensity, there are parts where Bob equally gets intense and gets goofy in different places, where he gets a little snarky and sarcastic. But we've all seen David Tennant's work as on Doctor Who, when he wants to give you the intensity and stare you down and give you the crazy eye and get you to do something, he can do it. So I think he'd be a super convincing role. I'd love to see. I'm trying to think if there was anywhere else, because Tennant's a talented dude. Like, is there anywhere his brand of like physicality and just being googly-eyed crazy, like what other character do you think you could slip him into anywhere in Dresden verse? You know, like he's not built like he's not a Michael Carpenter type. We had other picks for him later.
Yeah.
But I wonder, I mean, he's not a Thomas. Like
He
that's more
could-
of a Rico Suave, cool fighting. You know
He
what I
could
mean?
be part of the Fool's Moon crew.
Younger David Tennant could be. Could he be Billy though? Could he? We'll talk about that after. We'll definitely
Yeah.
because I think David fits probably anywhere we want.
So
That's an important one.
our on-site fact checker told me that it's more Scottish. He is a Scottish accent than a British accent. So
Whoa! We hired a fact checker.
yes, we have a fact checker.
Jeez, pack it in, fellas. The show's over. Now we just can't get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Oh well. Scottish, British. I stopped caring about what that area of the planet thought in 1776. Hello.
All right, so moving on.
Next.
We've talked about Harry's executioner, the man who's watching over him with a sword in his hand, a person who holds up the law, the magical laws. So there's two different type of laws. There's the law of the land, and then there's the law of magic. And one of the laws is you can't use magic in a harmful way. You can use it to defend yourself, but you can't kill people with it. And he's
Bit of a gray area.
Yeah. And so Morden is holding this against Dresden because he did it before, he'll do it again type. That's his mindset. So we had a character, we had a casting based on the research, but one of the things I forgot when I put his name down is that this man's passed away. But the Winter Wolf wants to keep him on there anyways. I do have a secondary option. So we're going to go with the first option, and that is Mr. Ray Stevens. He has the intensity. He has that look. He has those piercing blue eyes.
Stature, dude.
Morgan has. Yeah. Like, especially if you saw him as in the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
As Braylon Straw. That's the type of presence that Morgan has, and he has it in spades. But the problem is
deadly.
So my secondary pick, since we cannot get Mr. Ray Stevens,
Unavailable,
is Liev
Schreiber.
Yeah, Liev Schreiber. That's it.
Yep.
We all know him from the Ray Donovan series and X-Men Origins as Sabretooth. Yep. So I think
he is that one guy that killed Sidney Prescott's mom. Don't forget that. He killed Sidney Prescott's mom on screen, but didn't.
But he
then
did,
and then didn't or something. Yeah. Dude, he could pull it off. He's got that same vibe. Like he's older than he needs to be older than Harry. And the way the book works is Dresden's physically intimidated by him in most of their interactions until Harry actually sucker punches him, which is pretty hilarious. That's pretty funny. Happens much later. But he also needs to be almost, because he's described as almost as a height with Dresden. So if Dresden's like 6'8" or whatever, your Morgan needs to be like 6'5", 6'6", but he goes out of his way to say, but he's built 4 times as wide as I am and looks like he could destroy me, hand to hand. And also with magic, because Morgan is a he's senior, he's not the captain of the wardens, but he's like the senior warden beneath Lucio, like on the command structure, like he's number 2 of the wardens. So he's magically accomplished and a badass. He's also something like triple Harry's age or double it. So all that match, and the way experience works in this world is the longer you've been around as a wizard with proper training, your power level goes through the roof. So Morgan's that guy. You don't mess with Morgan. This is another one the show got really wrong. Like they cast rando black guy to be Morgan, who looked, and it was like thin, very understated. Like, no, there's no menace here. You need menace. Morgan he's described as being the Merlin's pit bull. Like when the Merlin needs somebody destroyed, like it's Morgan. Like that's who they send.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to get that menace. That's why I thought Ray Stevenson would be a great pick. Liev Schreiber is an awesome pick also, given we've seen he can bulk up and look intimidating as all hell. Great pick.
All right. So one of the other main characters in the first book, where you also did a dive into the supernatural realm, is a character called Bianca St. Clair, who runs a night house of pleasure, but she's also a vampire, which plays
also the black cord vampires. Yep. Love it.
Which plays more into the third book, but this is the introduction of this character. And then you also get Dresden's first real magic use in this as well. Like he hasn't really used magic up until this point. So you get to see that, which is a very great exchange from him entering into her lair to him interrogating her. But my casting for this, because of the type of role it is a vampire, I went with Eva Green.
Solid pick, because the way Bianca is, there's never a scene that Bianca's described in either of the books she's in where she's not drop dead gorgeous in any way. In fact, it puts Harry in danger in ways that he's not re-endangered until they introduce the Lara, Thomas's sister character later on as like the head White Court vampire, where he's like, I know this woman's 10 times hotter than I could ever get. Anything she asks me to do is only because she has her own interest at mind. I need to be careful and not think with little Harry. Like that's basically her whole thing, is that on top of also having regular vampire like strength and speed and all the other stat sheets that vampires in this world have. And Bianca don't mess around. Like when Bianca snaps, which is one of the best parts of the of, like you said, of seeing Harry's magic come out, because this is the part you're talking about, the pocket full of sunshine, right? Or the handkerchief full of sunshine in this scene where he gets to use the magic. Yeah, he's basically got sunshine folded into a hanky, and when she makes her move, he basically flashbangs her with it, which is the wildest, most creative use of a flashbang I've ever heard of in a book. It's great. It's never obvious magic until he gets into slinging the wind and the fire, and then that becomes kind of tropey and kind of cop-outy in different places along the way. But they're never the premier move that he uses in a book, except for when he goes with like the super fire spell in Grave Peril. Fuego, Pyro Fuego, Firestorm, burn. Firestorm, go burn. Yeah, it's like that.
All right.
But Ava Green, too good looking. We couldn't afford her on the show, but that's who I would get for Bianca. Fact.
So going into our couple of our other last main characters, we got talked about gentleman Johnny Martone, who is our resident mobster. Now, listening to him in the book, he does sound more suave, more like put together. But I think a guy who's played a mobster before in Broadway Empire, he was also in Man of Steel. So Neil before Zod, it's Michael Shannon as our Marcone.
This is a good pick, because the Marcone character is described early in Stormfront as looking like a college football coach, very well put together. He's got the great tan, but his eyes are the color of dollar bills, but he looks like a hungry tiger and knows you're the next meal, kind of like that's the setup for that character. So I think Michael Shannon can pull that off. He's supposed to be of a fatherly age to Dresden. They're not lateral. Like it's supposed to be, probably double Harry's age, give or take. He's supposed to be that established in his life, like 50s, early 50s, probably.
Anyone who's in charge of a crime family would be a little bit older.
Like the crime family, like Marcone runs Chicago unopposed, basically. And they talk about that he consolidated lesser families into his by moving violence away from civilian areas and keeping shit out of sight, while also cracking down on anybody that comes after his people. Very Oswald Cobb, except actually takes care of his people, like actually follows through on it, But I love Marcone as a character. I love that Harry is afraid of him when he first meets him, but over time it becomes more of that verbal sparring with Marcone, ultimately just resulting kind of like leaving with rolling his eyes at Dresden's brashness and like, oh Jesus, do we have to do this again? Like, yeah, you blew the doors off my club. Can we just get to the business, please? Like he's smart enough to know he should be worried about Dresden, but he's not outwardly afraid of him, despite having seen what he can do. And the one thing I love about Marcone is he takes magical steps to defend against Dresden in future encounters by hiring his own magically empowered people. I love that. I love when people make smart decisions. The other thing I love about Marcone, before we move on to Susan, because I'm sure Susan's next, is Marcone gets backstory in Death Mask, where he was on one path, and you get to see why he is the way he is and why he's motivated the way he is by the end of Death Mask. That was one of the best reveals ever in the series. And I won't spoil it for anybody that's going to jump into the series, but why Marcone wanted the Shroud of Turin for himself and why Harry gave it to him for 3 days. Awesome. All I'm saying. Chills.
All right. So moving on, the initial love interest of Dresden. She has a big story arc through the first 3 books, and then carries on sporadic through the rest of them. And this is Susan Rodriguez, writer, reporter
Love me some Susan.
for what is it, the Daily Arcane?
I believe the Daily Arcane. I believe you're right. Nicely done.
All right. So I had one actress pegged for this, but I was there thinking, and how much I love the movie Knives Out. I have to go with Ana de Armas as Susan Rodriguez.
This is the good pick, and this is why I'm glad you watch more modern stuff than I do, because I couldn't think of anybody besides Rosario Dawson as being somebody that I could see embody Susan, just based on the other things I've seen her in, where she don't mess around either. And then when we get into some of the physical stuff with Susan later, where she does have to kick some ass, I believe Rosario Dawson could do some of that stuff. But we've seen Ana de Armas in the movie with Chris Evans, so we know she can throw hands.
She's also been in a Bond film.
Oh, that's right. She was in No Time to Die? Is that the one she was in? The most recent Craig one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know she's up for it for sure. But Susan's a good character too, because she, again, it's like Butcher must have sat down with those character profile sheets and actually done the work to fill them all out. Because Susan doesn't just show up to be the pretty Puerto Rican girl that Dresden sometimes dates. Like, she works for the paper. And the paper is about like magical X-Files. Like, it's like a tabloid. It's not a tabloid rag, but like, it's essentially that, where they're writing about, oh, there's a vampire in the Upper West Side. Like, that's her whole gig. So she believes Harry at his word. And I don't think they ever really say how they met. I maybe they did, and I don't remember. But like, he never outwardly uses power in front of her until like the end of book 1. And then like, she sees it for herself. They're like, oh no, dude's probably not just pulling my chain to bone me. She wants the story. Like, that's, she's Lois Lane. Like, she wants the story. She's quintessential Lois Lane. But she's got the quips and she's ready to throw hands, especially in those later books, like Grave Peril, where she's infiltrating like the vampire ball without Harry. She's like, I brought a gun, I'm good. Okay.
Yeah.
I dig that. Like, that worked. Oh, you have an invitation that you copied from me? Okay. And you brought a gun? All right. You can go to the party. So yeah, dude, I love Susan as a character because she and Harry have a strained relationship at the best of times. Like, it's never hunky-dory with them ever. And then when the relationship has to go a certain way in the Changes book, like, it rips your heart in half. Like, that's one of the best quotes in the audiobook ever. I used the knife, I saved the girl. What have I done? Like, whatever, however that passage goes. It's so good. It's so effing good.
Yeah, it was like,
Great
I used a knife, I saved the child.
I ended a war or something. It's like a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
what have I
ended
done?
the war. God help me.
God help me. Yeah. And dude, it's like, and when Mars just performs line, like, his heart's in his throat, it triples down on how heavy it hits for sure.
All right. So as we're running low on time and we don't have any more pictures to share, here's a couple quick ones. So for the voice of Toot Toot, the fairy that we talked about, I was going to go with Simon Pegg to voice Toot Toot. I think his fun, jovial self would be a perfect Toot Toot.
I'd have to modulate that. I'd use Simon Pegg, but I'd want his voice to come through fake and weird, like higher pitch to match Toot. You know what I mean? That's how I imagine that.
Matt, who has a fun role at the bar. I have Holt I can't say his name. McClanny. Holt McClanny. He was in Mindhunter. He when you see him, he's what I envision Matt to be. I don't have a picture of him ready to go tonight, but I think he would be a great Matt.
Dude, I got to give you a funny Mac story. I know we're short on time. I got to do it. I lent this book to a friend at work to read, right? And he comes back and he says, dude, I really enjoyed it, but I thought the name of the bar was really weird. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's McAnally's. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, what? He goes, dude, I read all 30 chapters of this book and thought the name of the bar was McAnally. I was like, you're a dumbass. It's McAnally. Listen to the audiobook, you clown. But I could see where you could mistake those two. McAnally. It's like, it's some kind of weird Diddy McDonald's or something. I don't know.
So Carmichael, Murphy's partner. I have
the partner.
Shea Wiggum as
I don't know who that is.
as Carmichael, and then as Marcone's right hand man, that main thug that's with him, I have Joe.
Can't remember his
Magalo.
name. He's too good. He's too high profile. He could be Michael Carpenter. Now that I think of it, that'd be a better use of him.
That guy is
Like,
stacked.
Dude, that's what I'm saying, dude. I mean, he played Deathstroke, didn't he?
Yeah,
in a cameo.
In a cameo, plus he's really into D&D, so I think he would really be into a project like this. One
100%.
person.
100%.
So that's my quick rundown as we are running out of time. But yes, I think a show that's about 10 to 12 episodes of the Dresden Files, go book by book. This is how we would do it, and this is who we would cast as our cast for the first season. Let us know how we did.
I think a lot of that would work out swimmingly. I think if we changed 25% of it to something that's completely uniquely ours, we could probably pitch that as a show. Because I think there's nothing like that on TV that I'm aware of, like a crime scene drama mixed with magical and supernatural elements. Like I think that'd be a thing. Like we've had Supernatural, where like the guys would show up and they'd be like, "Oh, we're the FBI. We're here to investigate that really strange triple homicide." But it's like they're the A team. They just move around city to city and do stuff. I think there's room for this kind of show. I think the closest thing we've ever had to this kind of show is that vampire show Forever Night. Like that again, same time period as like when this Dresden Files show came out. Very similar. Dude, do you want to stay like 10 minutes and do some writing stuff, NaNoWRIMO, or do we just kind of cash that and call it? Like whatever you want to do.
We'll cash that and call it. We've kept the people for an hour.
I wrote in a good joke in the description about you not outlining. Did you see the description?
No, I didn't.
Read the description.
Yeah, I don't.
Read the description. It's funny.
I had to pull it up.
It's kind of funny. Dude, all right then. If it's all right with you, I would like to do the show's closing outro tonight because I have the quote. I actually pulled it up on my phone. I said I was going to do a setup and payoff from Stormfront with the Harry Blackstone Copperfield. So early on in the book, when Harry's introducing himself before the mailman shows up, he says, "My name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden." And then the end around comes at the end of the book. The payoff on that is Harry's settled into himself. He solved the case. He saved the day. All that good stuff. The final line or the final passage, final kind of like one line there. "My name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden. Conjure by it at your own risk. When things get strange, when what goes bump in the night flicks on the lights, when no one else can help you, give me a call. I'm in the book." Ass. See ya.